And now we're coming on to street pastors. Now, the main reason I mentioned street pastors is I met up with Jerry Boyer, who is a minister at St. Devnick's church out along the in Beardside area. So I met up with him. He's been fairly heavily with street pastors in the past, and he's going to be doing another session of training, which is coming up about mid-September onwards. Now, you can find out more about streetpastors.org, locations Aberdeen. So, they have on their website a snippet from their 10 years worth of celebration. So you can go to that one. Aberdeen Street Pastors work during the nighttime economy in the city centre, seeking to listen, to care and help those who are in need or find themselves in difficulty. They also run a small team of school and retail pastors. They're an interdenominational organisation and draw their volunteers from 35 churches across the city and beyond. Aims are to bring peace and a Christian presence during most nightlife communities, and by building relationships, serving where they can and where appropriate, taking these opportunities to share faith and people. Values include working with partnership and therefore working with the police, city council, churches, business communities, and they strive to bring a positive impression of the local church and relevance to the Christian gospel. Now, it would be a good idea to actually include therefore an interview which I had with Adrian Rowett, who is a street pastor, and you can hear what he had to say. And this was while I was on an observation evening with the street pastors. Well, we're sitting on the safe zone, and that for the street pastors of Aberdeen, and I've got Adrian Rowett. Adrian, how long have you been with the street pastors?
I joined just over 4 years ago, last January. My first observation night was January 2014, yeah.
What got you into street pastors in the first place?
Originally, I was at a church in Bankery, and there was a young lady who was a street pastor here, trained at Aberdeen, talking about what she did. This is going back about 7-8 years ago. She's since moved to Edinburgh. And at the time I just registered it as something that was quite interesting, but actually I've got 3 grown boys now, so having been made or given a bit more space, I had the chance to actually do something, and street pastors was it actually, yeah. Good to be out on a Friday or a Saturday night, and it was something worthwhile.
Very hands-on, as I have seen, and I'm really impressed with it. And the 2 times that I've been out with street pastors, I have just really enjoyed it, really loved it. And just talking to Steve just now, it was great to see his face light up and be so enthusiastic about the things that he does, and just feeling so comfy with it. I'm sure that must be the case for most of the street pastors.
I think what we found, I'm one of the halfway marks. We've got some people who've had 10 years with street pastors here in Aberdeen, and there's a passion about it. You either really enjoy doing it or it's not for you. And I realise probably if you go to any congregation, any church, there might be 3-4% of the congregation will get it, and for the rest of them they'll be going, that's not for me, I'll serve God in a different way. But for those of us who enjoy this, yeah, it is a fabulous thing to be doing, yeah. And we have some pretty miserable nights on occasion, but most of the time we'd all go home saying we've been blessed in some way, and we've probably blessed quite a few in the process too.
Definitely, and I like the safe zone, and everyone who comes in, I just sit around and doing even the stats. Stats is all boring, but actually it's a good record of what's been going on the evening, and having seen it now I can relate to it. So having seen that, what is the role of the street pastor? What do you do? How do you train for it?
Okay, so the basic motto of street pastors is to listen, care and help. That's how we start. We're the practical hands and feet of Jesus on the street. So we need volunteers who are willing to be out on the streets, prepared to talk to anyone and everyone and help anyone and everyone. So the training, given that lots of people come in with different life skills, is a meld of the roles and responsibilities of street pastors, what we will do and what we won't do. And then we deal quite a bit with first aid training, with youth culture. We have a session on good news because, of course, we have a good news story to tell. We don't hit people round the head with the Bible, but it's natural that people ask us why we do what we do, and that's our entree many times into a discussion about Jesus and why we're out here serving him. We'll also have a session with the police about how we interact with them, what the protocols between us and themselves should be. We have sessions kindly given by Penumbra, who deal with
the mental health.
And self-harming. We've got some people who are prepared to give us listening skills sessions, because of course part of this is just being able to listen to people and just empathise with them. And then we've also been good enough to have folk come and talk about suicide awareness too. So we try and fill out a lot of the training that most people have anyway, with a specific role about listening, caring and helping on the streets.
Okay, and what of the training is practical? What sort of practical things do you do?
Well, a lot of it is scenario based. So we will take situations and we will try and get our volunteers to think about what would they do in this situation. What would you do in a situation where you see somebody slumped over in the doorstep by a shop? What would you do if you see somebody having a bit of an argument with somebody else? How might you help people who look as though they're a bit down and a bit depressed? What might you do if you get into a conversation and suddenly all these bad stories and history comes out? How do you help them? And what happens if someone cuts their finger? You know, or trips up over the curb, or just needs a little bit of first aid or a bit of attention? We'll do discussions, we'll do scenarios, we'll talk about how we might help each other in those situations.
How long is the training exactly before you can become a street pastor?
Well, to become a street pastor initially, we tend to have a conversation with people because we are looking for Christians. So if you're not church-based, you can't come on the training, I'm afraid. We do have to have a value system that we can relate to. If you sign up to start on the training, we anticipate it's effectively about 50 hours of training, which sounds like a lot, but over sort of 6-8 weeks, on a few Saturday mornings and Thursday evenings, actually it goes by pretty quickly, and just about everybody who's done the training said how much they've enjoyed it and how good it is for applying actually in work situation, never mind street pastor situation. So we'll have people come in and they'll do the training with a group of volunteers, and it will last maybe 4 or 5 hours, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a test or is that a continuous assessment?
There's no continuous assessment per se, but obviously we spend time with individuals trying to just develop their skills, help coach them. But it's a team thing. Individuals come in as volunteers, and what we really want to do is take the best of what they can give us and meld it with the team. So it's amazing how the strengths and weaknesses actually broaden out, and we can support each other with the strengths. So the sum of the total is always better than the individual, of course. So it's absolutely superb the way it works.
That's good. And then at all times, you, within a particular team, a Saturday team, you then try to make sure that people then swap around during the night, so they're not with the same mini team.
Yeah, so although we might be teams of 6, 9 or 12 or any other combination up to about 12, we send people out in mini teams. So folk go out in teams of 3 or possibly 4. We try to ensure that they're always well supported. They've got some sort of mini team leader that's looking after them. And we'll just go out in groups like that. But as a team, collective team, on Saturday team 4, I'm fortunate I've got a core team. People inevitably swap in and swap out because they're on holidays or they've got things planned. But the swap system is that you swap and arrange with somebody else to come in, and if you know you're on holiday, somebody else comes in their place. So we have this meld of people that's the core. We'll always have people swapping in and out. So just a chance for folk to mix and meet. I mean, it's a social thing as much as anything else. We'll rotate the teams through the evening. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I think a lot of folks will have actually heard about the giving out of flip-flops. How many pairs of flip-flops do you get through a year? That's put you on the spot.
No. Yeah, it is. And the reason I'm sighing is because I'm the geek that actually put all the numbers together this time round, and I think it's about 1,100 pairs.
Wow.
In the year, something like that.
Where do you get your flip-flops from?
Well, our office manager is brilliant hunting on the internet, so we've found a cheap place that will supply them at a very reasonable rate. We'd love to be able to put flip-flops out with the Street Pastor logo, but of course it gets expensive to print up a logo and a brand name, but we'll go for the cheapest we can. We want people to go home. It's not ideal when it's 0 degrees and they're in flip-flops and bare feet, but it's probably better that than going in bare feet and cutting their feet. So price of a pair of flip-flops versus cut feet and the trip to the A&E, that's well worth it. Yeah.
Or even getting themselves tripped up on high heels.
We've had a few swollen ankles in the past. Yeah. So quite a few come in with broken heels, and we'll give them the flip-flops.
Okay, where do you see street pastors going in the future, personally?
Personally, that's a great question. A deep spiritual question. So there's a trade-off with any Christian charity as to how big it grows and how true it stays to the faith. And for my money, I would love to see Aberdeen Street Pastors grow a little bit more. We're not quite fully manned on all our teams, if I can use that expression. I'd like to see a few more volunteers come in, but not too many. But I'd like us to stay faithful to the Bible and stay faithful to Jesus. So if that means we're not as popular as perhaps some places would like to be, so be it. I'd rather we stay true to Jesus' message and were his representatives and ambassadors on the street. So I don't know whether that means we'll grow, but in the sorry, that's the radio. In the business world of strategic planning, you're always looking for growth. Sorry, for your listeners, we've got radios that are plumbed into CCTV, and the bars and the taxi services and various folk can call into CCTV. So we're all wired in together, but it does cut across conversations. So where was I with the question? Strategic planning. Yeah, a lot of organisations would look to grow. But I think in terms of where Aberdeen Street Pastors is, we'd like to see the teams, the 8 teams that we have rotating once a month on a Friday and Saturday, fully staffed up with volunteers. But I think it's then a question of how do we serve Aberdeen best. And obviously we've got school pastors and we've got retail pastors. So our areas of growth may be there rather than street pastors per se.
Out of interest, because going out with the teams, I was told about the CCTV and how in the area where we were walking was covered by about 70 CCTV cameras, whereas in actual fact throughout the city there are about 200. Is the intention ever to go into other areas of the city to cover those areas, perhaps as people walk home maybe, or catch buses home?
It's a good question, Rob. The answer is a direct question, yes, no, is no, we've not thought to do that. That would require quite a big recruitment exercise. I'm not sure, it's difficult. Yeah, of course we'd like everybody to get home safe. I mean, the two things you want as a street pastor, you want people to have a good time and people to get home safely. And we're out there to keep an eye on those that aren't enjoying themselves or we're concerned about getting home safely. So if that meant we have extras out there in other parts of Aberdeen, yes, it would be nice, but I can't say we'd be geared up to do it.
Okay, understood. Okay, what would you say to our listeners to get more people on board with the street pastors and be attracted to help?
We're looking for people who are Christians and want to be serving the city. Now, many of us, there are about 35 churches involved already with street pastors in Aberdeen. And many of us, most of my team for instance, come from outside of Aberdeen. So we commute in to do our service on a Saturday night. So we're looking for people who are prepared to come in and offer 6 to 8 hours for Jesus in a situation where they could be meeting anybody and everybody. That's where the heart is, to listen, to care and to help. It's what we're about.
How can people get in contact?
We've got a website, Aberdeen Street Pastors, www in the front of that. We've got a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and a number, so the telephone number for those of you who want to get in contact.
And there the particular interview ended. But that about the street pastors. Now, if you want to know more, there's actually a big street pastor weekend coming up, and they're encouraging local churches to get involved with this. The big street pastors weekends will be held throughout June and August, and it's only done in association with the ascensiontrust.org.uk, and there's actually a link on the Street Pastors website. You just click on Big Street Pastor Weekend and you can find out more about that. Also find out from their website more about the school pastors, retail pastors, safe space, and how to get involved with the partners. And you can go and watch little bits of videos and things like that and get involved with them. And we're hoping ourselves to be able to get out and on with these street pastors once again. I've been out twice with them now, and I have to say that both times I've really enjoyed it and got to see more of the street pastors. It's a very worthwhile organisation to be part of. Now, this is Gospel for Grampian, and if you're wanting to know, it's streetpastors.org /location/Aberdeen, but we'll put that information directly out on as a post on the website, and that with the podcast as well. Loads of podcasts actually due to come out. Oh wow, I'm going to have my work cut out.